Let me say first of all thanks to Mr. Lars Hedegaard, of course, for receiving me and saying all these kind words, and of course for the Free Press Society for inviting me and making this all possible. Thank you. Before I start my speech, let me say two things before. First of all, something about the recent events in Holland, which you guys may already know, is the court decision to prosecute PVV leader Geert Wilders. He's a member of the parliament, and it's because of the hate speech. And the thing is, at this moment, that you can in Holland, in fact, say, well, Hamas killed the Jews, you know, but that's not a hate speech, and you don't get prosecuted by that. But when you say, like, the Quran should be forbidden, or immigrants should be held out of the country for at least 10 years, then you do get prosecution. And in fact, it costs so much money for the courts to go to court, and lawyer costs and everything else, that it's in fact a bankrupt for the party. So it's in fact a great threat to freedom of speech, but not only for Mr. Wilders, but for all the people in Holland, for all the people that vote for him. And he's now #1 party in my country, which with 27 seats at this moment, #1. So all those people who vote for him, all those people trusting him, they're also standing in a trial in a court for the freedom of speech. And I think that's unacceptable. And I'm very glad that Free Press Society made it possible for him to go to the States and to say what he wants to say. And I admire that for the Free Press Society. It's one of the things I really do. And because it's in our system, there is a dysfunctional in our system, law system. Because you can say everything in a parliament, like forbid the Quran, whatever you want. You won't get prosecuted by that. But when you say it outside the court, in a newspaper, for example, then you get prosecuted. I mean, it's insane system. Because if a journalist comes to you and asks you what you said in the parliament, then you can repeat that. I mean, how strange is that? Then you should say, look, just look up again what I said in the parliament. Now I can't say anything anymore, and that's insane. Like I said. Another point is the award. Of course, I want to dedicate that actually to my mother. And you may all wonder why I'm giving it to my mother. Well, for two reasons. First reason is my parents, and single out thanks to my mother, because of the fact that they made it possible for me to change my religion. It's the fact that they made it possible and they didn't give me a hard time to do it. A lot of parents and a lot of children, in fact, don't have the luxury that I had in this case. And I hope many parents, especially in Islamic countries, will have this knowledge and give their children the freedom to choose the religion they want. Because the first lesson my parents ever learned for this thing is the only way that I can really love my religion, or to decide what I want, is to do it in freedom, is to have a choice. That's what they learned, and that's what I really appreciated from them. And second reason why I give this award, in fact dedicated to my mother, is after the attack of the 3 guys, the government decided to put me on, in an extra maximum security safe house and guards and everything else. It was a horrible time. And one person that was always there for me was my mother again. She helped me through it. And even though the times were hard, and even though the times were in despair, she would stood there for me. And I once lived 2 weeks on an army base because there was no place on, there was no quick place for me to put me there. They wanted maximum low risk, so they put me there on an army base. And the only person that could visit me was my mother. And so she did. We had a cup of tea, but it wasn't, as cozy as it is at home. So you only have a bed and that's it. And for that reason, above all, I'd like to thank her from here. I'm sure she will hear us from me again when I'm back in Holland. Well, now the speech, of course. When I heard about the fact that I won the prestigious Free Press Award, I thought to myself, Denmark is much further with freedom of speech. I don't recall in Holland having such organizations. Instead, we do have an organization who take you to court if you say something insulting against Islam, Muslims, or immigrants in general. They stand in a line. They even pick a number just to make sure to show their face on the television and say how shameful it is to insult Islam. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take you to a short journey. It's a journey of hope, bitterness, but also happiness. When I first started the Council of Ex-Muslims, I never thought that the issue of freedom of religion will be debated in not only Europe, but also in the Middle East. I never thought to get death threats, and eventually to get 24 hours police protection after 3 Muslims decided to use force against me. It was, and sometimes still is, a hard time to deal with. Some people ask me, of all this trouble, of threats, and being killed, it's worth it? I answer them with the same passion and glory in my heart. Yes. Because I believe in what I say and what I do. And if I had known now what I knew today, then I would do it again tomorrow, with no doubt. Now I come to the essence of what we are fighting for. We are not only fighting for freedom. Freedom is an empty word with no soul. I will not fight for a word, for that word is without perspective. But I will fight for people. People in need and hunger for freedom. And now the word freedom has a meaning again. It has a soul. You hear often people use the word freedom. I know, for example, that Hamas is using it. They use the word freedom all the time when they, for example, bombing the buses. Allahu Akbar. Also, Iran is using it. I mean, look at all what Ayatollahs are saying, or the mullahs. Well, they say, look, like Ahmadinejad last time said this. He said, we only negotiate with the United States if the United States act justly and for freedom of the people. Yeah, when I heard, I laughed too. It was, it's hilarious actually. But at the other side, you got organizations like Amnesty International or the Free Press Society. They all claim that they are fighting for freedom. I'm wondering, is it possible that freedom is not objective but subjective? After all, they say that every terrorist is a freedom fighter. Well, I don't believe that, of course. Freedom has no color or age, just like hate. Freedom is what reminds us that we are all born as a free man. We as free men decide what the course of our life will be, not the government. We as free men decide who we want to marry, how many children we want, what religion we want to believe in, and freedom to be what we want to be, gay or straight. No shame, no hiding from what we are. In other words, unless we ensure the enemies of our freedom, the liberties which they are keen to abuse, then we deny the essence of what we ultimately stand for, and therefore know better than those who we are opposed. Or as Voltaire has been paraphrased, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Our fight for freedom of religion is inextricably linked to freedom of expression. If I can't tell my parents that I do not believe in Islam anymore, then that would strike the heart of the freedom of religion as well as freedom of expression. Because I cannot believe what I want to believe, or not believe at all for that matter. And I can't tell a soul about it, because that would mean isolation, exile, use of violence, and perhaps even escape your own country for safety. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't make this up. These are real-life examples of people who leave Islam. These are all the people I talk to, all the young girls, boys, old men, old women for that matter. They all have the same problem of when they decide to leave Islam. They all have to face it. Freedom of religion and freedom of expression are under attack in Europe. In Holland, my country, according to a study, 6% of the Muslims want to use violence against those who leave Islam. That is 60,000 Muslims who say to use violence against the ex-Muslims. That's a lot of people. Now, I don't want to play with words like Islam and Muslims are not the same. Of course, that is true. But I refuse to say that my criticism and our fight is against the Islam or radical Islam. Because first of all, there is no radical Islam. There's only Islam. Some as radical, the same as the radical Muslims. There are no radical Muslims. There are only Muslims. What? They read different Quran? Quran light? PG-13 Quran? I don't know. Of course not. People who claim that there is a radical Islam never come with substantial evidence. You can change a book, especially not a holy book, but you can change people. I really believe in that. I changed. I know 600 people in my country which are ex-Muslim changed. And still, a lot of people in the world are still changing their minds on what liberty really means and what freedom of religion means and what their own religion in fact means. Look at the people in the world, for example, that say we are no longer a Muslim. The numbers are growing. Don't believe the lies of the clerics who say that Islam is the most growing religion in the world. If I had a football club, and I want you all to be a member of that football club, okay? Just imagine with me. But I will also write down that everyone who is a member, the children will automatically be a member of the football club. And I promise you this, after 1400 years, I will be the largest football club in the world that the world has ever seen. It is true. That's how it works in Islam. The very word Islam means submission. But make no mistake, the enemy is not the Islam or the Muslims. No, ladies and gentlemen, the real enemy is when you look in the mirror. It's you. It's me. It's us. We have let it come this far. we are sleeping while they are making plans. Here's what I believe in. To make sure that the countries who are in fact exporting, or should I say importing, their beliefs, which strike the heart of our democracy and our way of life, is to do pre-anti-strike. Our foreign policy must be different in Europe. We must, in order to stimulate and stabilize the world, we should do an invasion like in Iran, for example. What is the word freedom? What does the word freedom means if we do not act like it? A lot of people criticize George W. Bush, but I like the guy. I'm going to be honest. No, seriously, because he went to Iraq. He liberated people who were in pain, who were suffering, who were torturing, and in fact, the other Shiite people didn't have any right at all. So I like the guy. I like President Bush. In all the Europe, everywhere in Europe you see people saying, yeah, we're glad that he's gone, but people don't realize, we forgot what happened more than 65 years ago in Europe. We easily forget that. So let us remind again what happened then, and let us rethink what he did to liberate them. So that's what I think about Iran as well. For 35 years we are negotiating with them. Every administration that comes before Carter, President Carter, is saying, well, let's negotiate with Iran. Let's open the diplomatic ways. Let's make sure that we just make balance with Iran and keep them friends. But while we are talking, they are making an atomic bomb. And when is that finishing? When is that diplomatic way finished? When? Just give me a date. At least we're now doing it for 35 years. And I'm saying that enough is enough. Now it's time to declare as Europe, as NATO, and especially Israel as our ally now, because they are the greatest threat now at this moment, to declare war on Iran and to liberate the people of this country, and of course make the world a more safer place. Because if they have the atomic bomb, I guarantee you because I guarantee you they will make atomic bomb. And when they have it, we have no more room for negotiation, because they will press the button. If they say, if you come, we'll press the button. That's how simple it is. And then we will lose Israel. Then we will lose them. And I don't want to lose our greatest ally, one of our greatest allies at least, Israel. So that's one of the things I really believe in as it comes to the foreign policy of fighting against the fascist side of the Islam, which they are the head of sponsors. Iran is the head sponsor for it. They are supporting Hamas and Hezbollah, actually, and these are not very friendly clubs, I can assure. But, ladies and gentlemen, the winter sleep is not over in many European countries. People like charlatan, Tariq Ramadan, like the good Bible said, behold, I send a wolf among you in sheep's clothes. People like him easily misguide the European leaders. And these European leaders don't know the first thing about the Islam and his followers, and will do nothing if we don't stop it. One thing is clear to me as a blue sky, and is that we cannot depend on the government to fix the problem for us. If we, in Europe, do not act swiftly and efficiently, we will lose our freedom of speech and religion, but also other freedoms like women's rights and gay rights. Now I know you're all getting tired of hearing me nagging about Islam and Muslims, so I will round this up with with just a few words on freedom of expression. Freedom of speech involves toleration of a great deal of nonsense, and even of matters which are in bad taste. But it must be realized that what constitutes as a bad taste, or discrimination, or offensiveness is to a very great extent subjective. Like my example, I said once on a newspaper that Prophet Muhammad is to be compared with Osama bin Laden. For Al-Qaeda, that's a great compliment. I mean, that's subjective. They say, wow, we love this guy, actually. He says, comparing our leader with Prophet Muhammad. But for other people, they say, look, it's an insult. So what is insult, in fact? A balance must be struck between the ability of individuals to be unrestricted in the free expression of thoughts and ideas, and the need to ensure that the governments are able to efficiently carry out their function of administration, law and order, and preserving the rights of individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, I would like to use this quote. I believe that liberty is the only genuinely valuable thing that man has invented, at least in the field of government, in thousands of years. I believe that it's better to be a free man than to be not free, even when the former is dangerous and latter safe. I believe that the finest qualities of man can flourish only in the free air, that progress made under shadow of a policeman is a false progress and no permanent value. I believe that any man who takes the liberty of another into his keeping is bound to become a tyrant, and that any man who yields up his liberty, in however slight the measure, is bound to become a slave. This quote is from H.L. Mencken. It's a very, great philosopher and great admirer of I'm a great admirer of his work, of course. And to end up this, this speech is just to say that a lot of things has done, and a lot of things should be done more in Europe, in Holland especially, perhaps. We got a minister in the cabinet that is trying to put law for not insulting a religion. The parliament, which has lots of, like I call, dimitude people in it, and unpatriotic people, are willing to yield up, are willing to give up that right, the same right that people like Spinoza, one of those, of course, you all know it, great, in Holland, Spinoza and Erasmus. These are the great people who criticized criticized Judaism 400 years ago. These are still heroes in Holland, and in their footwork, this government is trying to limit it, the free speech. And the fear of the comedians, I know a lot of them, they're afraid now to make jokes about Islam. They don't make it anymore because of the fear of prosecution, one, and afraid to get death threats, two. So it's actually funny when you think about it that one must feel safe by the government. That's the job of the government, to make sure that his people feel safe in their own country. But in my country, at this moment, it's rather to be safe outside the country than inside the country, in fact. You got threats are Muslims, and you got threats from the government to end up in jail. So, to round this up, I would like to ask you, and hoping for your support on especially the subject which I already said about Mr. Wilders, because he's not standing there alone, we all standing there in the court. And hoping that your country, and especially Europe, which I'm sure we are not all keen of Europe as a, as an organization, but that's not what I mean, but I mean the countries itself. I hope that we all make sure that freedom of speech and freedom of religion, one of the most important laws, important values, will be high again. It will be valuable again. And that we will not negotiate on it with nobody. If people coming in our country, Muslims or not, if they come to this country, they will assimilate this culture. They will assimilate our rules, they will accept it, or they will leave. And if they don't leave voluntarily, I think we should make them leave back to their home. Because apparently you're not feeling well in here, and why would you stay in here if you don't like it? I mean, it's the same as if I come to your place, because your country isn't home. If I come to your place, I won't smash your windows, I guarantee you. And if I do, it's your right to just ask me, will you please go out of my house? And these people are doing exactly the same. They come here, they abuse our laws, they abuse our way of life, our freedoms we have in this country, your country, my country, in Europe. They abuse it and they turn it against us. They use the court, for example. They go to court for free speech, for hate speech, they say. They use legal ways. They use terrorism, threats. And my message to those people is, if you don't get out, we will kick you out. Thank you very much.